$400. That's what a professional scarification service quoted you last spring, and you almost paid it because your lawn looked tired and spongy and nothing you did seemed to fix it. Picture this. It's a Saturday morning, the kettle's on, the dew's still sitting on the grass, and you walk out barefoot to enjoy the one bit of green you actually own. And then you feel it, that soft, springy, almost mushy layer underfoot, like walking on a damp sponge. The grass looks fine from a distance, but up close it's thin, pale, and patchy in places it never used to be. That spongy feeling has a name, and the man at the big garden center will never explain it to you properly because the whole aisle is built to sell you a fix, not to teach you the cause. And here's the part that stings. You've felt this before. Last year, the year before that. Every single spring you tell yourself this is the year the lawn comes back thick and dark green like the photos, and every single year it sulks, thins out, and fills with moss instead. You're not lazy. You water it, you feed it, you cut it, and still it fights you. So let me be blunt. Most people attack this exact problem the wrong way. They grab a springtime rake and scratch the surface for 20 minutes, or they hire a machine for one afternoon and rip the whole lawn to shreds. Or they do nothing because they're scared of making it worse, and the result is always the same. The spongy layer comes back, the grass stays thin, and nothing actually changes. Here's what I'm going to show you. Two completely different jobs that everyone lumps into one word. The first is dethatching, dealing with the dead spongy layer choking your grass. The second is scarifying, which is a far more aggressive job most people get catastrophically wrong. And then, at the very end, there's one final approach that is the entire reason I made this video, the thing that stops both problems from ever coming back, and I'm not going to name it yet, because you need the first two parts to understand why it works. But before any of that, let me ask you one uncomfortable question. What if the spongy layer in your lawn isn't a sign your grass is dying, but a sign it's been growing too well? Hold that thought, because it changes everything. Part one is the problem you can feel under your feet right now, and that's thatch. And it matters first because it's the silent reason most of your other lawn care quietly fails. Here's what you instinctively do. You feel that spongy bounce, you assume the lawn needs more feeding and more water, so you give it more of both, and it feels right, it feels like care, but here's what's actually happening beneath your feet. Thatch is a tightly woven layer of dead grass stems, roots, and runners that builds up between the green blades on top and the soil underneath. A thin layer, under about ½ an inch, is healthy. It protects the soil and locks in moisture. But once that layer climbs past 3/4 of an inch, it stops being a blanket and becomes a barrier. And this is the mechanism nobody explains. That thick thatch layer is mostly made of a tough fiber called lignin, the same stuff that makes wood hard, and your soil microbes can't break it down fast enough. So it stacks up, water hits it and runs sideways instead of soaking down. Fertilizer sits on top and never reaches the roots. And worst of all, your grass starts growing new roots up into the thatch instead of down into the soil, because that's where the moisture is trapped. So now your entire lawn is rooted in a damp sponge instead of solid earth. The first hot, dry week of summer arrives, the sponge dries out, and the grass that's rooted in it goes yellow and crispy in days. Even though you watered it, you blamed the weather. It was never the weather. So here's the reframe that turns it all upside down. Most people think a spongy lawn is thirsty. But actually, a spongy lawn is drowning in its own dead growth, and every bag of feed you throw at it just makes the thatch grow faster. Read that twice. Now, the correct way to deal with it, from the simplest move to the most serious, start by testing it, because you should never tear into a lawn blind. Take a spade and cut a small wedge out, about 3 inches deep, like a slice of cake. Look at the side of it. You'll see the green grass on top, then a brown spongy band, then the dark soil. Measure that brown band. If it's under ½ an inch, leave it alone. You don't have a thatch problem. You have something else, and we'll get to that. If it's between ½ an inch and 3/4, a light raking once a year is plenty. If it's over an inch, you've got a real job ahead. For a light layer, the simplest tool is a spring tine rake, the one with the fan of springy metal tines. It costs around $15 to $20. You drag it firmly across the lawn, raking out the loose dead material, and you go in two directions, first up and down, then diagonally, so the tines catch the thatch from different angles. On a small lawn, say under 500 square feet, that's a solid 40-minute workout, and it's genuinely all you need. Do it in the autumn, in September or October, when the grass is still growing enough to recover, but the heat has passed. For a thicker layer on a bigger lawn, hand raking will break your back and take all weekend. This is where you step up to a powered dethatcher, sometimes called a power rake. You can rent one for around $60 to $80 for a half day, which is a fraction of that $400 quote. It has spinning flails or wire tines that comb the thatch out far faster and more evenly than your arm ever could. Set the depth so the tines just kiss the soil surface, not dig into it, and make one pass, then rake up what it pulls out. And here's the part the rental shop won't stress. One average lawn can produce 6 to 10 large bags of dead thatch in a single session. People are genuinely shocked at the volume. That's how much was choking the grass. Be very clear about the stakes here. If you keep ignoring the thatch, you don't just lose a bit of green, you lose the response from everything else. Your feed stops working because it can't reach the roots. Your watering becomes useless because it runs off, and the grass that's stranded up in the dead layer dies off in patches every summer, patches that take 6 to 8 weeks to fill back in. If they fill at all, you end up paying for seed, paying for feed, and paying with your weekends twice over. And one universal prevention tip to close this out: never collect every single clipping every single time you mow. Light clippings, dropped little and often, are broken down within a week or two by soil life and actually feed your lawn. But never let long, heavy clumps sit, because those clumps are what rot down slowly into the lignin-rich thatch you're trying to avoid. Mow little and often, and the thatch problem half manages itself. Now, quick thing, and then straight back into it. If this is the kind of explanation nobody ever gives you in the garden aisle, the kind where someone actually tells you why instead of just selling you a bag, then subscribe. That's the whole point of this channel. Every video here pulls apart one lawn job and shows you the mechanism underneath it. One tap, and you won't have to guess again. And if this kind of deep, honest explanation is exactly what you've been missing, there's something I want to put in front of you for a moment. Everything I've laid out across these videos, the soil science, the timing, the tools, the sequences that actually work, is pulled together in 3 field guides I put in the description. The Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition. These aren't padded out garden center pamphlets. They're the reference I wish someone had handed me before I wasted years doing this wrong. You can grab them through the link in the description for $97, and they sit on your phone or your tablet so you can pull them up the moment you're standing in the garden wondering what to do next. If you want the full picture in one place, the link is down there waiting for you, right? Part 2, and this is a completely different job, even though the garden center sells you the same machine for both. Dethatching combs out the dead layer sitting on top of your soil. Scarifying cuts down into the lawn and rips through the living surface itself, slicing the soil and tearing out moss and matted growth by the root. They are not the same job, and treating them as the same is exactly how people destroy their lawns. So here's the thesis. Blunt and uncomfortable. Scarifying is not gentle maintenance. It's controlled damage. And if you do it at the wrong time of year, you won't tidy your lawn, you'll kill most of it. Here's the universal mistake almost everyone makes. They get fired up on a warm, dry weekend in the middle of summer, they set the Scarifyer blades deep, and they go to war on the whole lawn in one afternoon. It looks brutal but satisfying. Brown soil everywhere, bags of moss pulled out, and then nothing grows back. Because in high summer, the grass has no growing energy left to recover from that level of damage. The bare soil bakes and cracks, and the only thing that germinates in those gaps is weed seed and more moss. You've spent a Saturday turning a thin lawn into a dirt patch that takes the entire rest of the year, sometimes the following spring, to recover. That's the catastrophic version. Weeks, sometimes months, of bare brown lawn staring back at you. So let's do this properly. From the cheapest and simplest approach up to the one a professional would actually reach for. Method 1 is the manual Scarifying rake. And this is your floor. It's a different head from the springy dethatching rake with rigid, sharp blades instead of soft tines. designed to cut into the surface and slice through moss and the matted layer at the base of the grass. It costs around $20 to $25. You pull it hard, leaning into it so the blades actually penetrate the top quarter-inch of soil, not just scratch the surface. This is the right choice for a small lawn or a light moss problem, and the mechanical reason it works is simple. By slicing vertical lines through the matted growth, you open up channels for air and water to reach the soil and the grass crowns, and you tear out the moss that's been smothering them. It's hard physical work, no question, but on anything under 400 square feet, it does a genuinely professional job for the price of a takeaway. Method 2 is the powered electric scarifier, and this is the sweet spot for most homeowners with a normal-sized lawn. You can buy a decent one for around $120 to $180 or rent one for the day. The key thing here, and the bit people get wrong, is the depth setting. It has rotating steel blades on a cylinder, and you control how deep they cut. For your first ever Scarify, or for a light annual tidy, set the blades to just nick the soil surface, no more than 2 to 3 millimeters deep. For a heavy moss-choked lawn that's never been done, you can go deeper, around 4 to 5 millimeters, but only if you're prepared for it to look wrecked before it recovers. The mechanism is the same as the rake, but relentless and even. Those spinning blades make hundreds of vertical cuts per pass, and crucially, they lift the moss and dead matter up and out where you can rake it away. Do one pass in one direction first. If you still see matting, do a second pass at right angles to the first. Never more than 2 passes in a session, because each pass is real injury to the lawn, and the lawn can only heal so much at once. Method 3 is the one a professional reaches for, the petrol scarifier with interchangeable cartridges. This is around $300 to $400 to buy, but you can rent one for roughly $70 a day, and for a large lawn, it's the only thing that makes sense. What makes it the professional's tool is the swappable heads. One cartridge holds spring tines for gentle dethatching, and the other holds fixed steel blades for true deep scarifying. So the same machine does both jobs at the correct depth and the correct power without bogging down on a big area the way an electric one does. The mechanical advantage is consistency. The heavy engine drives the blades at a constant speed even through thick, wet moss, so every cut is the same depth, which means the recovery is even across the whole lawn instead of patchy. If you've got a quarter acre or more, or a lawn that's been neglected for years and is more moss than grass, this is the tool that does in 2 hours what would take you 2 ruined weekends by hand. But here's the rule that sits over all 3 methods, the one that decides whether you get a thicker lawn or dirt field. Timing. You scarify when the grass is actively growing and the weather is mild and damp, so it can heal fast. For most cool season lawns, that means early autumn from late August through September, or a lighter pass in mid-spring around April once the grass is clearly growing. Never in summer heat, never in winter when the grass is dormant and can't repair. Get the timing right, and the same cut that looks like damage in July becomes a lawn that's visibly thicker within 3 to 4 weeks. Part 3, prevention. This is the thing I promised at the start, the entire reason this video exists, and here it finally is. After every Scarify or heavy dethatch, the single most powerful move you can make, the one that prevents both the thatch and the moss from ever taking hold again, is to overseed and top dress in the same afternoon. That's it. That's the secret the $400 service quietly does after they tear your lawn up, and never itemisses on the bill. Here's why it works mechanically. When you Scarify, you've just opened hundreds of clean slits in the soil and cleared the surface of competition. For about 48 hours, that bare, sliced soil is the perfect seedbed, warm, open, and free of moss. If you scatter fresh grass seed across it right then, the seed falls straight into those slits, makes direct contact with soil, and germinates fast and thick. A thick, dense sward is the thing that prevents moss, because moss only ever moves into the gaps where grass is thin. You're not fighting moss, you're crowding it out before it can start. The exact materials are simple. Use a quality overseeding mix at around 35 grams per square meter, scatter it evenly by hand or with a small spreader, then brush a thin layer of top dressing, a sandy loam compost, lightly over the top, no more than 1/4 inch, to hold moisture around the seed. Water it gently every day for the first 2 weeks and do not let it dry out. Do this one thing every autumn and you stop the cycle dead. No more spongy thatch building up because thick, healthy grass and active soil recycle dead material faster. No more moss creeping in because there are no bare gaps left for it. And the figure that matters, that single afternoon of overseeding, maybe $40 in seed and dressing, is what saves you that $400 rescue service year after year, plus the cost of all the feed and water you currently waste on a lawn that can't absorb it. So which one is for you? If you've got a small lawn under 400 square feet and a light spongy feel, a springtime rake and a Scarifying rake by hand, plus a bag of seed, is your entire kit well under $50 total. If you've got an average lawn and real moss or a thick thatch layer, you can measure, rent, or buy the electric Scarifier, work it 2 to 3 millimeters deep, and overseed straight after. And if you've got a big or badly neglected plot, a quarter acre or more, the petrol machine with both cartridges is the only tool that won't punish your back or your weekend, and it pays for itself against one professional visit. Now, here's the new problem you're about to walk straight into. You Scarify, you overseed, you water, and within 2 weeks, you see fresh green coming through, and you feel like a genius. And then you go to mow it, and this is where people undo everything, because cutting new grass too early or too short rips the young seedlings straight out of the soil before their roots have anchored, and you lose half of what you just grew. There's a precise window and a precise cutting height for that first mow, and getting it wrong wastes the entire job. If you're sitting there right now with new seed down or about to put it down, type the word seedling in the comments, just that one word, so I know how many of you are at this exact stage. The next video breaks down exactly when and how to make that first cut so your new grass survives it and thickens instead of thinning. Subscribe so it lands in front of you when you need it, because this is the moment it all gets won or lost, and I don't want you to miss it. And while you're waiting for that first mow, here's one more thing that catches almost everyone out, and it costs you nothing to get right. Keep off the lawn. I mean it. For the first 2 to 3 weeks after you overseed, every footstep on damp, freshly sliced soil compacts the surface and crushes the tender seedlings before they've had a chance to root. So rope it off if you have kids or a dog, walk the long way round, and resist the urge to keep poking at it to check progress. The seed is working underground where you can't see it, and patience is the cheapest tool in your shed. And remember the order, because the order is everything. Test first with your spade. Dethatch or Scarify second, at the right depth, in autumn, never in summer heat. Overseed and top dress the same afternoon while the soil is open. Water daily for 2 weeks. Then, and only then, that careful first cut. Follow that sequence, and the lawn you fought every single spring finally starts working with you instead of against you. That spongy, pale, moss-filled patch becomes the thick, dark green carpet you walk out onto barefoot on a Saturday morning, the one you actually wanted all along. Before you go, if this video helped, there's a deeper version waiting for our members. You can ask me your own question and a real person answers, and you'll be among thousands of folks just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen. It takes less than a minute, and you can cancel anytime, no risk. Now that you've cleared away all that thatch, your lawn is ready for a real comeback. In the next video, I'll show you how to turn a tired, patchy lawn into something green and healthy in just 4 days. It's starting right here.